Yay, we survived. We all survived. It's all good. What happened to that orphanage? It got shelled. Hi everyone, welcome to another Beyond the Base Game video. It's been a while since I've done one of these because I had quite a lot of review content to catch up with, but finally I can get back to some expansions, and this time I'm talking about this particular one, this war of mine, the board game Days of the Siege. Now, there was an expansion that came out before this that I won't be doing an expansion review on. It was, I forget what it was called, I think it was like Tales of the Ruined City, I believe, but it had basically a bunch of modules in it, some extra scenarios. It was fine. I like the scenarios, but I wasn't a fan of a couple of the modules they threw in. It's kind of, you can get it if you want, but I wouldn't necessarily say you must get it. This one I was ho-hum about getting it first though, because it's basically a campaign. It's a 3-act campaign setting for this war of mine, which is already one of the best thematic story-driven games I've ever played. It is just oozing with theme, but it's a very dark theme. If you have had any experience with a video game, you know how depressing this game can get. It makes you feel uncomfortable because it's set in like a kind of like fictional war setting, and it's really going through the gritty side of that war, you know, from the perspective of, you know, the civilians that are in that war. So they're having to live in poor shelters, barely able to keep themselves warm or fed as all the soldiers are fighting alongside. People are betraying each other. People are against each other just to try and get a tin of canned spam. You know, all these very dark concepts, but I love it for it. I'm the sort of person that watches the Black Mirror, that series on Netflix, and goes, oh yeah, this is so dark and gloomy and I love it. You're sick! I know that sounds really bad, but basically I like it when a series can challenge me like that, when it can make me feel a bit uncomfortable by not being so afraid to go the extra mile to like portray something that's like, wow, that's pretty dark, you know, think about it, that's pretty nasty. And it's like, I don't like it when things sugarcoat everything for you. This does not sugarcoat a thing for you. So what is Days of the Siege specifically? As I said, 3-act campaign. So you now have a little sideboard on top of the board that you already had for your shelter, which is a map of the local area. And with this map, it allows you to go visit places other than just simply looking at a card from the original game. And in these places, event cards will pop up that have various story elements. There may be characters that you meet during the game that come and go. Some of them affect you like in a small way, some of them don't. If you leave a particular event to tick over time-wise and leave off, something will happen, good or bad. But then if you go and check out those specific events, then you might just like, you come across a little passing thing and it's nothing major, or you might get into a full side story with it. But essentially what you're doing in these 3 acts is surviving. You need to survive until the end of this war. Everything's kind of already gone to pot. You're now in the bits where it's really going to pot, and you've got to survive it out. And there's a lot of different ways that this game can go. I mean, one of the best things I'll say about this is that it has got so many branching paths. It's unreal. This has got so much story built into it. A lot of it built into just this book of wartime scripts, which have some of the best writing I've seen in some games. And it just really means that this has a lot of replay value, because I've played through it and it does take a while. I mean, you're still taking a good length of time per act. So I'm glad that they kept this to 3 acts. If they made this a 5-act campaign, I might have got a little bit like frustrated at that point. But 3 I thought was a good length, and you can actually finish it in 2. It's possible to finish this game in 2 if you make certain choices, because you might actually be able to end the campaign early. I'm not going to say how, but you know, it's possible. In fact, the first time I played it, I did finish it on the 2, in Act 2, but deliberately rewound and went the other choice so that I could carry on and do the 3rd act.
What happened to then?
We passed then.
When?
Just now. We're at now.
Go back to then.
Cool, I like that there was all those choices. And of course, all those different events I might have done, well, for example, I'm not going to, by the way, I will preface, no major spoilers here. If I am spoiling a little bit of something that can happen, trust me, there is so much in this game that I'm barely spoiling like 0.5% of what you can do here. But for example, one event had me go find an orphanage, okay? So I went to a local area, found an orphanage, and there was, you know, 2 teachers trying to look out all these starving kids. And believe me, if you're worried about children suffering, this book will still make you cry, because it's like, wow, these kids, oh my God, you know, they come up and they're all happy to see you, but then they see you have no food and they just sort of wander away slightly depressed. It's just like, oh my God, you know, it's like dark. But I helped them out and I gave them some food, and then I got into this side plot with trying to help them out. It's like, right, come on, we've got to survive, but I gotta help these kids. And for someone like me who doesn't want kids, that's saying something. But I went through and did some various tasks for them, and go like rescue kids, go get them stuff, go get them supplies, and then eventually I had to relocate them. And you go out and you're trying to find a location for the orphanage to relocate to. There's multiple places you can go. Because I was hell-bent on trying to get my own things sorted in that act, I went for the first place I found, which was kind of like, this should work, but it has some risk. Went through and it gave me an epilogue for the end of the game. And okay, got through, survived the campaign in Act 3, read that epilogue, it's like, yay, we survived, we all survived, it's all good. What happened to that orphanage? It got shelled.
Wow, that was pretty brutal even by my standards.
No backsies.
It's like, what's that little squirrel character from the the Animaniacs who cries when Bambi's mum dies or something, like he's watching a kid. That's basically what a lot of people will be thinking as some of these things resolve. It's super dark, and I will warn you, if you are somebody who could get triggered by the original This War of Mine, this one will trigger you faster. I would say this is darker than this one by far. Now, I'm going on about story, but mechanically does it work well? Yeah, I actually think most of the mechanics in this are similar to what's in normal This War of Mine, but it does have some additional extras, as well as a couple of changes. Like it touches on exploration is done a bit differently this time around, and I quite like the way it works. You essentially have various exploration actions you can do, but then if you decide to go explore a location like an apartment building and that, you can still do so, and it still works with that exploration deck. But there are a couple of aspects that are taken out of the game to make life a little bit easier for you. But with the mechanics themselves, you do get a bucket load more tokens and a bunch of cards in the game. This is not all for this expansion. I've kind of mixed the storage up, but you do get a lot of cards specific to this game. You get character cards, you've got more event cards, you've got various cards that are literally only used if you come across a specific character. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you've got to try and not self-spoil here, but you've also got all the different act sheets, you've got the script, a decent, well laid out rulebook, I'll actually give it. I didn't have a problem playing this game from this rulebook. I was quite impressed with it, to be honest. This plus the journal from the previous setting, you should be pretty fine overall. Now, it's got the same art style as the other one, so it will be familiar to anybody who's played the game. And I will say that I like the way that you can do multiple, well, I said about multiple paths. One thing that's really cool is that you have Act 1, so this is your first act, you play it and you go through. Depending on what you do in that act, you have two different, I can't find the specific ones here, they're somewhere around here, but basically you will end up with two choices for which Act 2 is. So Act 1 is this one, but then you've got Act 2A, Act 2B, depending on what you did. And then depending on what you do in this one, you get Act 3A, Act 3B. So you've already got branching paths just for the main acts, and each of these do feel very different from each other. But that's on top of all the stories and that you're doing. You've got to decide how you do it. The game doesn't pigeonhole you into trying to do a specific route. If you decide you want to help out the orphanage, go do it. If you decide to ignore them, that's your choice. There's other things you got to do. You can't do everything, and sometimes you are just going to have to pick your battles and say, well, I could go repair the bridge, but why do I need it? Do I desperately need it? I kind of need to do this. All right, fine, I won't do it. Oh, the bridge is now broken for the whole game, and it's harder to transport across there. It's a bit annoying, but, that was my choice. So you've got a lot of moral choices to make. There is still luck in the game, and you kind of had to get used to that with This War of Mine. You're rolling dice, and occasionally the dice are going to flummox you. But that's going to happen in this one as well, and certainly this is not easy. I mean, this was hard. This is hard as well. So if you've already come up with some house rules to make the game easier, then by all means you'll probably need to use a few of them here. But overall, I was really, really impressed with this. I was so like, oh, I don't know, do I need to get this expansion or not? And I will say that I think this is better by far than the Ruined City one, because you really don't need the Ruined City one. The sewer module in that I didn't really like, the farmer module I didn't like, so really all I've got from Tales of the Ruined City is a few extra scenarios, whoopie-doo. Here, you get the extra scenario in the way of a 3-act campaign, so you've already got more in here than you have in Ruined City. So honestly, I would say get this one before Ruined City, but still, get this one if you're a die-hard fan of the game. if you're only playing this on a casual level every now and again, you'll probably be fine with the main game. You know, you'll get enough enjoyment and replay value from there. I still haven't checked out every scenario in this game. But if you're someone like me who really enjoys this war of mine and just wants a bigger story, like really wants to emphasize that story aspect of this game, then this is a wonderful new addition. It completely blew my mind as to like, I thought like, oh, do I want to get it? It's not the cheapest expansion in the world. Oh, I don't know. I guess I'll try it, fine. And wow, I really should have got to this earlier. So that's kind of all I can really say on it. If you're a fan of this war of mine and you want a story-driven campaign, get it. Otherwise, you can kind of pass it by because it is obviously adding a lot more to the game. So that's it for me on this War of Mine Days of the Siege. If you liked what you see, then consider subscribing to the channel and don't forget to check out the code in the description for 5% discount off zatu.co.uk. If they've got this War of Mine in stock and it's been on your radar for a while, then use my code, get a little bit of money saved and spend it on, well, your next game purchase, I guess. You know, we never really truly stop buying games, do we? But take care and remember, despite how depressing and dark this game can get,
Fade out already, we got the joke.
switch back to reality at some point, it's still only a game. Take care, bye for now.